I think that the spot Bitcoin ETF is a monstrous offering capability that will have an impact first. That'll have an early impact because into the entire conventional Wall Street banking system. What it means is people with trillions of dollars of assets in 10 minutes can buy $10 million of Bitcoin and they can do it no money down. Like, so I could literally buy a $10 million house in 60 seconds with no cash, right? That's what happens when you get to an ETF. And so that will plug every major bank, every investment bank, all the money managers, all of the conventional Wall Street players into the asset class immediately. That I'm highly confident it'll get approved. I think at this point, what we've seen is the FASB adoption of fair value accounting is a big endorsement of the accounting profession of this asset class. I think the court system ruling in favor of grayscale, I think that's a big endorsement from the legal branch of government of the asset class. I think we already know that in Congress and Senate, there are lots of fans that support the asset class. And I think even in the CFTC and 2 SEC chairs have all said that this is a commodity, this is a legitimate asset class. So I think that we have a consensus that's building, and I think the pressure is now building. So I think the real question is just, will a spot ETF be approved in Q4? Or will it be approved in Q1? Right. And here are the 3 things. The halving is coming with 100% certainty. And as far as I can see, most of the selling of Bitcoin in the market is the Bitcoin miners that have to sell in order to pay their electricity bills and pay their debt expenses and their operating expenses. So that amount of selling pressure is going to be cut in half in a few months. So we know that's coming. And then we know there's a spot Bitcoin ETF coming. And when that comes, we plug into Wall Street and the entire banking system. And then finally, we know that fair value accounting is coming. And when that happens, the objective will go away. And now you're going to introduce this as a conversation into hundreds of boardrooms. They will not move in a week. They move quarterly, but over the course of 12 quarters, you'll start to see company after company looking at this, and you'll start to see a reallocation of assets. At the end of the day, corporations only hold 2 assets. They hold cash and they hold bonds. And so if Bitcoin is available as an asset, pari passu to a bond, then you'll see a reallocation from bonds to Bitcoin. And then in the institutional investor side, you've got all these people holding real estate, holding commodities, holding gold, holding ETFs and S&P indexes and the like. And if they start to reallocate, and they will, 1%, then 2%, then 5%, then you're going to have something that's never happened in the history of the world, which is you've got an ETF on a commodity that is scarce. Every other ETF in the world is on an asset that is not scarce. It's inflationary. You can make more buildings, you can make more real estate, you can make more gold, you can make more commodities, you can make $1 billion worth of any of those things. The underlying producers produce more of the asset to deflate or to depreciate the price. With Bitcoin, when $100 billion flows into the Bitcoin spot ETF, there won't be any ability for any producer to produce any more Bitcoin. What we had before was we had $500 million of cash that kind of was a liability yielding 0. And today we have, it varies anywhere from $4 billion or more of Bitcoin. Of course, that appreciates the value of Bitcoin. So we actually transformed the business over 36 months. The ultimate number will be a function of whether Bitcoin's 100,000 or 250,000 or 500,000 or 1 million, right? A coin. So Bitcoin is the kingmaker here. Our strategy is we'll just keep acquiring more Bitcoin, and we'll keep doing it through accretive financings. So if the bond market is open to us, then we'll go back to the bond market and we'll raise money. And if it isn't open, we may go to the equity markets and if they're not amenable, we look to other markets, and then we keep buying with our own corporate cash. So there's two parts to our plan here, or two parts of the strategy. The one part that's transparent is this: we're Bitcoin. We keep buying Bitcoin. We're not selling the Bitcoin. We're buying the Bitcoin, right? So that's the part you want to know. We're not hedging the Bitcoin out, because it's very important for people to know that, because if they want Bitcoin exposure, they want to know we're long Bitcoin. The other part of the strategy is what kind of financings do we do and how fast do we do it? That I can't give you perfect future guidance on, because the market conditions might change, right? And in fact, it's one of those things where if I told you, it would change the outcome. Like if I told you this is what I'm going to do, people would trade against me to make it impossible to do that thing. So it's one of those things like the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, where I can't tell you. If I told you, I couldn't do it. But if I don't say it, then maybe I can do it. And then after the fact, after I've done it, then of course you'll know it. And that's part of the benefit of the business is the volatility. People think volatility is bad, but I always say volatility is vitality. The fact that there's volatility and uncertainty creates opportunity. It's why people trade our options every day. People are buying and selling in the options market, and because they trade the options, they create demand for the underlying equity. And because of that, they create demand for the bonds, and because of that, it drives down our cost of capital. So if everything was certain and assured, then the volatility would go away, and then the opportunity would go away. So the bottom line here on this is not everybody can be MicroStrategy. There isn't enough room in the market for 100 of us, maybe a couple of companies. And the strategy requires due care and credibility. You have to be very thoughtful and prudent. The strategy of issuing a Bitcoin spot ETF is simple. It's like, you give me your money, I buy Bitcoin with it, I don't lose it, right? The benefit you get by being an early adopter is you get in before it 10x's. Like what'll happen is at some point, Bitcoin will be 250,000 and it'll be really easy to buy, and it'll be not scary, and it'll be easy to borrow against for it. And if you went to the trouble to get the crypto exchange account and to work through all those other things, you got to buy it for 10,000 or 5,000 or 15 or 20 or 30,000. Those will all look good. So I think that it's a really big breakthrough. I mean, I got a lot to say.